Dream Bank knows that dreams take hustle and hard work, and they thrive with connection and support. Visit amfam.com/dreambank to join our community and explore our free events and resources designed for dreamers like you who do, believe, and achieve.
Healthcare is contraception.
My pap test, my breast exam, my cancer screening.
Trans care. HIV testing.
Knowing I have an STI and learning how to tell my partner.
Planned Parenthood is healthcare.
Book your appointment today.
This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth, for competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty, for the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Very important time, very important show, a very important guest, Laura Loomer, who's coming on later, a very courageous lady who's not afraid to talk and say what she thinks, but more important than that, she's a doer. She's someone who acts, doesn't talk, and leave everything for naught. But I have to address a very, very serious subject right now because we're in the course of a war. It's a war between the left and the right. There's a reason why we're called the right, because we are right. Okay, we believe in rights for the American people. We are not Marxists. We are not socialists. We are not radical Muslims. We're not members of the Marxian Jewish left. We're not radical blacks. We're not radical LGBTQs, lesbians, transgenders, gays. And we are not atheists. We are people who believe in the vision of our founding fathers. We believe in this country. And we must be prepared not just to speak out and to speak out clearly, because we need to coalesce the people in this country to get them to understand, to educate them so they know that they're at risk. We have to be the Paul Revere of this modern age. The redcoats are coming. The redcoats are coming. Literally, the Reds are coming, and they're already here. They're already in our country. They've inside the gates. The barbarians are here. They have taken over our country. Lock, stock, and barrel. In the first month and a half of the Biden-Harris administration, they have destroyed the nation. Nearly 50 executive orders, opening the gates, floodgate of immigration from the South, cozying up to the Palestinians and radical Muslims in the Middle East, getting down on their knees to Iran, going along with the World Health Organization and its cover-up of COVID-19, which clearly was a bioweapon. I can go on and on and on, notwithstanding destroying our energy industry and everything else. And then furthering this racial and ethnic division in this country, pitting one group against another to the point that we have no culture left. Forget about cancel culture. It's canceled culture. It's over. It's done. And even this week, Dr. Seuss has been banned. And Curious George, the kid's book, who's a monkey, he's been banned because he's a monkey. Are we going to ban all monkeys? Are all monkeys racist? I mean, this is more than theater of the absurd. It's similar to what France experienced after the French Revolution. I was a major in French literature, and political science, all three at Duke University. I had to pick one formally to put in my diploma, and it was French literature. But after the French Revolution, which was a noble cause, it got out of control. Every day of the week became the same. Everybody was referred to by the same name. The country went into absolute anarchy and chaos, and it took Napoleon to reunite the French people. Now, he didn't do such a great job either in the end because he became a dictator. Power corrupts. They sent him to the Isle of Elbe in exile. But this is where we are right now. And we're experiencing the after effects of a successful leftist revolution who has taken over this country, lock, stock, and barrel. And what makes it even worse, they're doing it with force. And ironic, with force that is really not even on their side. First, they have 20,000 troops stationed in Washington, D.C., many of them National Guard. They keep them away from the White House and the Capitol because they don't think that these troops are loyal to them, Biden and Harris, and the evil leftist Democrats that are now in control, and other radical groups, special interest groups behind them. And in fact, the new Secretary of Defense purged many of the people in the military believing that they weren't loyal to Biden and Harris. He got down on his knees to Biden and Harris. Most likely he promised that to get his job as Secretary of Defense. And then you have the FBI director. What a disgrace of a human being. I mean, unbelievable. The guy had no guts even under Trump. But now, forgive the French, he's actually committing oral sex with Biden and Harris over his Gestapo-like tactics in rounding up everybody that was in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. Doesn't matter whether they were peaceful or not, they're under investigation. And if you don't turn over your cell phones to the agents, and I would say most FBI agents, I doubt, believe in this or even want to do this, but they're being forced to do it. They're following orders, and they are terrorizing the country like the German Gestapo did during World War II. They even locked up an individual named Cleet Keller, an Olympic swimming gold medal winner, because he entered into the Capitol. The DOJ, the Department of Justice, my once proud alma mater, under Biden and Harris, has now indicted the guy on 6 or 7 felony and misdemeanor counts. He could do 30 years in prison. The guy wasn't violent. Most of the people that came in to the Capitol were not violent. There were some bad people in both sides. There always are. But these were the American people who had said, we've had enough. We're done. We see the total corruption in the executive branch deep states of both political parties. We see the total corruption of the clowns, court jesters, and criminals in Congress who were conducting, just basically a dog and pony show. It looked like the Keystone Cops. And then it even got worse later with the second impeachment. Bunch of corrupt people running around like chickens without their heads on. And then you've got the judiciary, which, as I write in my book, It Takes a Revolution. Thomas Jefferson, I dedicated the book to him, said would become despots and tyrants because they're unelected and unaccountable to the people. And sure enough, they have. And I show that in my book through my 44 years of being a lawyer. That doesn't win me a lot of friends when I appear in front of federal judges. But I have to say what I believe to be true. And even the ones that were good in the early years have turned. They flipped, like Judge Royce Lamberth of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. He's lost his nerve. Because you know what? He said to himself, probably, I don't know, I didn't talk to him about it. I mean, I do consider him still a friend, but I had to be critical because, he's a senior judge now. Maybe he doesn't want any aggravation because people are scared. People are scared of these Gestapo tactics. People are scared of the deep state intelligence communities that have dirt on everybody and can destroy them. And even if they don't destroy them, just the thought that they can destroy them keeps people quiet. Do you think that Chief Justice John Roberts flipped on Obamacare just because he had a change of heart at the 12th hour? No, they have something on him. He's reportedly been living in a closet all these years. Now, nobody cares anymore about that, but maybe in his generation they do. And maybe he doesn't want to be outed. Maybe there are other things as well. I know that Supreme Court justices have been surveilled from whistleblowers. But this is the country that we live in today. We are no longer in control. But what makes it even worse, when people are coming after you, and they're coming after you in front of you, at least you can see what they're doing and react. But many in the so-called conservative community, they're not really conservatives at all, because if they were, they would stand for something. Many of them are running for the exit stage left. Many of them are disloyally abandoning their colleagues and friends. Their employees feel threatened if they say something that the left doesn't like, and they're going to be banned. Or if if an employee is called a racist or whatever for a remark that has nothing to do with being a racist. They're worried they're going to get fired. And I know myself, just in the last few weeks, I've had difficulty publishing a few articles which simply said that unless, this was not on my website, but another website, which simply said that unless we take peaceful and legal means to wage a second American revolution, like citizens' grand juries, like a third continental Congress, that there will ultimately be, and I made it clear, I don't want to see it, a very bloody, violent uprising. We saw the beginning of that on January 6th. It wasn't violent and it wasn't bloody. A few people died. That was not intentional. Most of those people were in their capital peacefully. That's their capital. It's our capital. But it's going to happen because people see that we're being enslaved by these radical leftists, and nobody in the now dead Republican Party will stand up for them, and nobody on the judiciary will even hear a lawsuit, even by the president, by justices of the Supreme Court that the president put on the bench. And I'm talking about Donald Trump. And now these conservative websites and others won't let you say what needs to be said because they're worried that they'll be shut down, or they're worried that some other leftists might come after them. Well, you know what? Our founding fathers were not afraid. They pledged their lives, their sacred honor, and risked their lives to form a new nation. They died to create a new nation. So you look around, look at all the riches that still exist. They're being dissipated, and they won't be here for much longer if we don't do something. But then think about your kids and your grandkids and their kids and what's going to happen in future generations. That's what our founding fathers thought of. They were rich. They didn't have to risk anything. They were millionaires even in the 1700s. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. But they risked it all because they understood that future generations would be living in slavery. And by the way, Thomas Jefferson was against slavery, and so were the other founding fathers for the most part. But it wasn't the time that they could do anything about it. They don't need to be canceled. We're going to be right back, and I'm going to talk about what's been going on right now in a broader context. But I want you to think about it before I come back, because you have to risk everything if you want a country for the remainder of your life and for your kids and grandchildren. And you can't be scared. You can't be like these cowardly so-called conservatives who, frankly, are just cashing in at the bank and let everybody else be damned. These are not our friends. They're just as dangerous as the radical leftists that are coming after us. I'll be right back.
Dangerous.
Don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor.
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I now want to talk about how everybody who opposes the radical left becomes a racist. The race word, the use of racist anymore has no meaning because it's been used in every context. But yet, our so-called friends on our right, anytime they're called a racist, most of them run for the X's. They're afraid of being called a racist. Even Dr. Seuss now is under attack. And ironically, now that his books are being banned, they've reached the top level of the New York Times bestseller list. I urge you all to go out and get copies of those books because there's nothing racist about them. In fact, one of the aspects of being racist, and I really love Asian Americans, they're hardworking. They don't believe in affirmative action. They actually reap what they sow. If you look at UCLA or other schools, it's mostly Asian. They got in there on merit. They didn't get in there because they claimed they were being discriminated against, and they excel. And, I have Asian Americans working for me. They're my best employees. I can tell you that. But yet Dr. Seuss is being trashed because in one of his books, he had a picture of an Asian American with slanted eyes and a rice bowl. Well, you know what? Asian eyes are very beautiful. Asian women are very beautiful. Asian men are good looking. And there's nothing wrong with with slanty eyes. In fact, a lot of Caucasians wish they had those as well. But that becomes racist because the Chinaman is there with a rice bowl that has slanted eyes. Or Curious George. Curious George is now banned as well. Curious George is a monkey. Is Curious George a racist because he's a monkey? And no one ever said that being a monkey is racist. Okay, but now it's racist. Everything's racist. Now, I'm Jewish, okay? My nose is probably bigger than most people who are non-Jewish, okay? If you depict me and you draw a picture of me, you're going to show a bigger nose, okay? So, is that racist because I have a bigger nose? This is this absurdity of where we are today. But you know what? It's been given credence, and it is taking hold, and it permeates every aspect of society. Now, another thing, let's talk about Andrew Cuomo. Okay, Andrew Cuomo is a bad dude. Andrew Cuomo committed crimes. He recklessly endangered elderly people in New York and comes on television. I'm the greatest thing that ever lived. I'm in control. Like his father, Mario, who was a 4-time governor of New York, and like his brother, Chris Cuomo, they're all very articulate. But you can't judge a book by its cover. And in fact, this cover is rotten. But I'll tell you, I sympathize with him in one respect. All these women that are coming forward right now, my client, Lori Loon, okay, who was really sexually harassed and abused by Roger Ailes of Fox News. And I've sued Fox News and Suzanne Scott, the current female CEO that covered it up, that enabled Ailes to do this, even procuring hotel rooms for Ailes. That's what you've got running Fox News. That was sexual harassment. Laurie says to me, that's sexual harassment. What happened to Cuomo wasn't sexual harassment. But you see, the radical left, the feminists and the radical gays, lesbians, transgenders, whatever the case may be, they've got to have somebody to lynch, and they got to find somebody to lynch. So Cuomo becomes the target. If you don't run out of white men to lynch, you're going to find one. Okay. Now, I represent a lot of sexual harassment victims. It's real. I believe in women's rights, but I also believe in men's rights. And this is what we're at today. If you're a white male, look out. You're under attack. Woody Allen, 30 years later, Hollywood is destroying the guy. No one will even work with him anymore. He's one of the most brilliant satirists, producers, and writers in Hollywood history. Frankly, I don't believe what's being said. I don't. And this is what you're going through. Michael Jackson, I was always skeptical of that. They had to burn him at the stake, too. I'm not saying that these things don't happen, and they're terrible if they do. But in today's society, they look for people to destroy. And people that they want to destroy either tend to be very famous that they can extort, or white males. There are television commercials on in California. I go to California frequently from law firms that say, contact us if you've been harassed by a very powerful and rich person. That's a message. We will extort money from those people. This is where we are. I'm going to be right back with Laura Loomer. The whole country's out of control. We need to take it back, and we need to tell it like it is, and we don't need cowardly conservatives that censor us what we have to say. And certainly, Laura Loomer is no coward. Listen to what she has to say. I'll be right back.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with my friend, my colleague, extremely courageous woman, someone who's a true conservative, who doesn't shy away from anything like many conservatives are doing today in wake of the dictatorship that's been installed by Harris and Biden. Of course, I say Harris first because I don't think Biden's long for this world. His health looks extremely bad, and if he doesn't die of his own volition. I think somebody will probably give him something. He doesn't wake up. And this total communist takeover will be complete. But Laura Loomer and I, we fight back. And years ago, we brought a lawsuit in the district court in Washington, D.C., a hack judge, believe it or not, a Trump judge. And most of them are hacks, unfortunately, because they were chosen with the recommendation of Republican establishment hacks. He dismissed it. Then it went up to the D.C. Circuit Court. That's the federal appellate court. They affirmed it, mostly leftist judges up there. And now we're at the Supreme Court. And interestingly enough, this case, which is an antitrust lawsuit, and of course, you know, I'm an antitrust lawyer, among other things. I helped break up AT&T when I was a lawyer at the Justice Department in the Reagan administration. It claims that, and it has very strong grounds, that by discriminating against conservatives like Laura Loomer, Freedom Watch, and others, that's anti-competitive and therefore a restraint of trade, because these companies do it in tandem. They do it at the same time. It's an agreement in restraint of trade. And then we also claimed monopolization to break them up. But even stronger than that, there's a law in the District of Columbia which says that in a public place, in a public fora, you should not be discriminated against based on your political ideology and beliefs. That's not in the Constitution, by the way, but that's in the law of the District of Columbia. And that issue's in front of the Supreme Court as well. That may, in fact, be even our strongest count in our complaint. Now, what's interesting is that the Supreme Court, on 3 occasions, had an opportunity to reject this petition for writ of certiorari. That's what you file to get the Supreme Court to decide whether to take the case. That's what the Attorney General from Texas had filed with regard to election fraud weeks ago, and the Supreme Court didn't take the case. But in this instance, on 3 occasions, the Supreme Court has said, we're rescheduling. So there has to be a debate going on inside of the Supreme Court as to whether to accept this case. And I don't want to jinx ourselves because I'm a little bit superstitious, as Laura is, but that may be a good sign. Laura, how you doing? Give us a take on what you've been up to these days about this case and about the so-called cancel culture. And that's a kind way of putting it. It's basically a dictatorship that's killing free speech, much like happened in East Germany and the Soviet Union. But tell us how you're doing and tell us about this case.
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, well, I'm doing well. I just filed to run for Congress again last week in Florida's 21st Congressional District. And as you know, recently, Governor DeSantis, the governor of Florida, said that he was taking the charge out of all the state's governors to address big tech. And he recently proposed legislation that would fine big tech social media companies $100,000 a day for each day that they deplatform a candidate. However, upon reading this legislation, it doesn't have a retroactive protection, right? And so clearly it was inspired by my campaign, given the fact that I was the first deplatformed candidate in U.S. history. And now you have Donald Trump, who's been banned, the first deplatformed president, although he's not yet a candidate. And so if this legislation were to pass in its current form, it really wouldn't protect me or Donald Trump. It wouldn't benefit us at all. And so there was an article that came out in Breitbart today because, as you know, as a lawyer, Larry, language is very important. And so, if this is going to protect any candidates from being banned either prior to running or, being targeted prior to announcing, the language definitely, needs to be addressed on this matter. I also just got back from Orlando where I participated in numerous events. And then, of course, that's where CPAC was held. And their theme this year was America Uncanceled. But, while they were bloviating about cancel culture, I noticed that they didn't have a single panel dedicated to deplatformed individuals or, highlighting any of the egregious deplatforming of my candidacy. So, it's just what you see, all talk, no action. You mentioned that our case has now been postponed 3 times in the Supreme Court when they could have easily just dismissed it. But, for all the bitching and moaning we've heard over the last 3 weeks from Republicans about cancel culture, where are they? I don't know anybody else who's trying to grift off of the cancel culture movement who has a case in the Supreme Court right now. Do you? Because I don't know. Anybody.
No, and I think that Governor DeSantis is doing a good job. I'm a Floridian as well. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of our state. It's one of the few states that still has any kind of freedom left. But $100,000 a day, that's less than a penny in our pocket, Laura. That's not going to stop them from doing what they're doing.
Exactly.
These people make.
It's not going to stop them. It's not going to stop them. Exactly. And I've done the math. And even if they were to do the calculations, it would be 71 million total for me and President Trump, like 35 million for each of us. And, we're not even going to really know the results of the Florida redistricting till January, because now the data isn't going to be delivered till September when they're out of session. But regardless, the issue is the language, right? As a lawyer, when you read this legislation, you'll see for yourself that it talks about the act of deplatforming a candidate who is already a candidate who has social media. But what if the candidate is somebody like myself who had no social media, or somebody like Donald Trump who also has no social media? And so the language is very important on this legislation, and in its current form, it does nothing to help me or President Donald Trump.
Well, and we'll see whether it could pass the Florida legislature, which is not as Republican as it used to be. And to be a Republican these days, frankly, no offense, I'm a Republican too, but I'm quitting. I'm starting my own political party for the American people. What do? They do nothing. Okay. They just sit there and they talk, like you said, bloviate, term used to use by Bill O'Reilly. And that's the point of CPAC as well. You know how you get to speak at CPAC, Laura? You'll never speak there because you actually believe in something. You're not a lobbyist. You're not sleazing around selling pardons for $750,000 because you know Donald Trump like Matt Schlapp. But you have to pay to play. You want to speak at CPAC and you want an award, ante up. My former group, Fitton, they've paid nearly $500,000 over the last several years. Of course you get an award. Of course you get to speak. But the people who are actually doing something don't get to speak, you see. And that's the difference. And then we have our friend Jason Goodman, who came. He was invited as a guest, and Jason never did anything to either Schlapp or CPAC, and they escorted him off the premises with security guards because they're worried that he's going to find something out or that he actually might say or do something, as happened with you, a year or so ago when they escorted you out. And there's a troubling trend in people that claim to be conservatives of censoring other conservatives. And I've seen this on websites. I have 2 articles I put forth to a publication in the last few weeks. They wouldn't publish it because I said there was election fraud and because I said the people entered the Capitol were not just criminals. There were a few on either side, but most of them were ordinary people that were there because they had seen the corruption in all 3 branches of government, in particular the judicial branch, which refused to even hear President Trump's claim of election fraud. And it wasn't a claim. There was election fraud. So we're getting it from both sides. And in my view, sometimes it's worse when you get it from people that are supposed to be on your side because you get it in the back. At least from the left, you can get it frontally and you know where it's coming from.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree. And this is exactly what we're talking about. And so, they constantly talk about how they want to have solutions to this, but when they have a case that actually could go somewhere, they don't want to highlight it. And so, you can't really blame the average American voter for just giving up on the conservative media and even the GOP because, what are they doing exactly? I don't really see any legislation from Republicans right now to address tech censorship in Congress. I don't see anybody on the media highlighting any real efforts, despite talking about, people getting banned each day. We get it. We know that people are getting banned. They banned President Trump, for Christ's sake. You think they're not going to ban Dr. Seuss? You think they're not going to ban anybody else? If they can get away with banning the most powerful man in the world, of course they're going to. I mean, how many more hours are we going to dedicate to mainstream media network television complaining because somebody else gets banned? Everyone's going to get banned. Newsflash, everybody listening is going to get banned. And if you don't think it's going to happen to you, well, wake up. I've got news for you. Everybody is going to be silenced because if they can silence the president, they'll silence you. So instead of complaining like they do on Fox News each night, what are they actually going to do about it? Let's talk about litigation. Let's highlight people who are actually fighting back, right? Let's highlight campaigns that are being deplatformed and people who are pushing big tech initiatives or anti-big tech initiatives instead of just talking about it, right? And that's why we're in this mess, is because we have people who they would just want to bloviate each night instead of actually fighting. It's much easier to complain and get paid $20 million a year like people like Tucker and Hannity do than it is to actually fight back.
Yeah, $20 million is actually small compared to what they're paid. I got to tell you something. But what I'm talking about as well is this self-censorship in the conservative community I've got people who have approached me that want me to represent them that are afraid that they're going to be terminated from conservative websites and cable news networks because they've said something that is no longer allowed to be said, such as there being fraud in the last election, or maybe they were misquoted. And, the left puts that out there and they react. Look what happened on Newsmax, just a few weeks ago when Mike Lindell came on and he wanted to talk about voting systems, voting fraud. Mm-hmm. And the head of that show, the host, freaked out and walked off the stage. It ended. The guy couldn't even speak. It was unbelievable. And here's Newsmax, owned by Christopher Ruddy, who gave $1 million to the Clinton Foundation, who threw his lot with Trump because he saw Fox News sinking. But I'll tell you something, if it doesn't work out, he'll be donating probably to Biden and to Harris. See, this is what we've got. We've got sunshine patriots and summer soldiers, as Thomas Paine said. We need real patriots, and we need people with your courage, Laura, to put their foot forward. And you're much like my other clients, whether it's Joe Arpaio, the sheriff, America's sheriff, whether it's Chief Justice Roy Moore in Alabama, who was smeared falsely. I have lawsuits on behalf of him, or Dr. Jerome Corsi. I can go on and on and on, but you won't see these people in the mainstream conservative media because they're radioactive, because these people don't have the guts to put you on because you actually do something. You don't show up on Hannity with a low neckline and a large cleavage, and that's the basis of your getting on there. Okay. So I'm being facetious. Right. That's, who I'm talking about. So this is where we are. And if the conservatives don't step up to the plate, then we're going to have to do it on our own. But you know what? Go back to the revolution. It was a few good men that started it, our founding fathers, and they coalesced the colonies. And there's a way for us to get out. There's a way for us to communicate. They won't hold us back. And it's time for very big donors to come forward and to start our own platforms, to start our own social media. And I'm going to be starting my own webpage as well. I'm going to compete with these so-called conservative entities that are afraid of their shadow. And I hope you'll join me in that.
Yeah, look, I've been pushing alternative networks and encouraging people to get off these social media sites for a long time now. But the reality is you're right. We have self-censorship in the conservative movement, and they're too afraid to even talk about these things. I saw a very high-profile anchor from Fox News the other day, who I'm friends with, who told me that from the top, we were told to never, under any circumstance, mention Laura Loomer, her campaign, or her lawsuits against big tech. So not only are we fighting leftist big tech censorship, but also censorship from people who are supposed to be on our side. And at the end of the day, money talks, and it's up to a lot of these donors to stop funding the parties and to start funding individual candidates and litigation that's actually going to address these issues, because for all the talk that the GOP does in their fundraising letters and, the spammy text they send out every day, I don't really see much action or many results to back all their claims up.
That's right. And we both love the president. I think he did some great things, but him to have thrown his lot back in with that Republican establishment, this will mark the end of Donald Trump if he keeps this up. I hope that he will break out of that someday and join us. But in any event, Laura, thank you for everything you do. The American people owe you a great debt. I know how courageous you are. I'm very proud to have you as a friend and as a client. And stay safe down there. It's not an easy time.
If people want to support my campaign, they can go to LauraLoomerForCongress.com.
Laura, thank you for everything you do. We'll bring you back very soon.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow patriots, those who believe in the Father and the Son, those who believe in the vision of our founding fathers, we must rise up. I want you to go back. I want you, as I've been saying over and over again, to read the Declaration of Independence. Read it over and over again. It's the most beautiful document ever written. It is, in fact, an extension of the Bible, but it's actually, in many ways, more moving than the Bible. It was written by Thomas Jefferson with the help of Benjamin Franklin and John Adams and others, our founding fathers. He looked to divine providence, and so did the other founding fathers, to create a new nation. It was a miracle that this country was created. And now it's been destroyed. We're on our backs. It's been destroyed in just a month and a half by brain-dead Joe Biden and the evil witch Kamala Harris, who have brought all of the radical leftist barbarians through the gates, not just of Washington, D.C., but the entire country. We, the American people who believe in things, must rise up. We cannot take it sitting down. We cannot hope that it's going to go away. It will not go away. The Republicans tell you, just vote for us in 2022. We'll take the House. The idiot of a minority leader who hopes to be majority leader, who hopes to be Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. Some clown that even said that when Hillary Clinton was under investigation for what she did at Benghazi, that was just a political hit on her. This is the moron who's going to control the House of Representatives if the Republicans take it back. And then you've got the corrupt Mitch McConnell, who's even taken money under the table from China, communist China, as I discovered and we discovered it in Judicial Watch during the years that I ran it. And we know what he did to President Trump. Republican Party's dead. Stick a fork in it, throw it in the trash. That's where it is. President's made a mistake throwing his lot back with the Republican Party. We need new parties. We need competition. In a separate organization, I'm going to start a new party. I'm going to ask you for your input on what name. I've got a couple of names that I want to do it for. Whether we overtake the Republicans or not, there needs to be competition. I'm an old antitrust lawyer. And in fact, Laura Loomer and I talked about that, the antitrust case that we have with regard to the big tech, breaking them up, making them play fair, making them play by the rules, make sure that they don't discriminate, make sure that we have freedom of speech. We need competition. We don't need the Republicans. The Republicans have had their chance. Ask yourself, what did they do with Obamacare? What did they do with the budget? $30 trillion in debt. Our kids and grandkids will be more than bankrupt. They'll be 10 feet under and unable to get out. What have they done in a number of areas? What have they done with regard to justice, with regard to Comey and Clapper and Brennan and the Obamas and the Clintons and the Bidens? Who's trying to do that? What have they done with regard to communist China that's destroyed this country and the rest of the world with a bioweapon? What have they done? They haven't even asked for compensation. These people are less than worthless. So when you see Jim Jordan on Hannity, who may appear to you to be the best of the worst, with rolled up sleeves, no tie, look like he's getting to work. No, all he's doing is running his mouth. That's it. So we need people of action, and we need to be left alone by those cowardly conservatives that won't stand with us. In the Bible, Gideon's army won. And in our revolution, a few good men were the ones that coalesced the colonies. I want you to get my book. In addition to reading the Declaration of Independence, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. Read it. I have peaceful and legal means to wage a revolution. And I do not want to see violence. I don't want to see bloodshed. But I want to see us succeed by coming together in mass to demand a free country, just like the people of Poland did when they forced the Soviets out. Nary a shot was fired. And that's why it's so important for us to educate the people. It's important for us to speak to the people. It's important for us to act, not just to talk, not just to get documents. Hang the documents on the wall. That's great. Fox News loves documents, okay? I used to get documents, and I still do, but I bring hard-hitting cases, and I'm bringing a citizens grand jury in less than a month to indict Joe Biden, his son, Hunter, and his brother, Frank, for massive bribery from the Chi-Coms, the butchers of Beijing. We, the American people, must rise up. We, the American people, don't have a country left. And unless we rise up now, we're going to have nothing left at all, much less a country. Reparations are on the horizon. Let's pay reparations. I want my piece of the pie. Well, you know what? You don't deserve your piece of the pie. You had nothing to do with what happened during slavery. Roll up your sleeves, get to work. I'm not just talking about radical blacks. I'm talking about everybody. They all want reparations and get the job done. Take a lesson from Asian Americans who worked for what they got and have succeeded. They don't have reparations. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, God helps those that help themselves. Remember that. And stay safe.
It's confusing out there. Trudy wants to go to the office tomorrow. She needs that work. life separation. But she also needs to work in pajamas. Work says nothing. She's confused. James wants to call his old man, but calling someone old is wrong, right? It's okay to be old, just not to be called old. Is it adjectives that are the problem? He's confused. These are confusing times, which is just about the right time to have the Burger King Impossible Whopper. A Whopper made without beef that tastes just like a Whopper. I don't know.
Dream Bank knows that dreams take hustle and hard work, and they thrive with connection and support. Visit amfam.com/dreambank to join our community and explore our free events and resources designed for dreamers like you who do believe and achieve.
It's confusing out there. Trudy wants to go to the office tomorrow. She needs that work-life separation. But she also needs to work in pajamas. Work says nothing. She's confused. James wants to call his old man, but calling someone old is wrong, right? It's okay to be old, just not to be called old. Is it adjectives that are the problem? He's confused. These are confusing times, which is just about the right time to have the Burger King Impossible Whopper. A Whopper made without beef that tastes just like a Whopper. I don't know.